A potential new law is being debated in Congress that would make it a crime for Antifa domestic terrorists or anyone to bully, intimidate, and become violent with a group while wearing a mask. You see, what Antifa does is they always cover their faces so that they cover their identities. They can't be identified in videos. And then they commit felony crimes. They commit assault. They harm people. They're violent. They throw homemade bombs and other weapons, and they use blunt force weapons and so on. And this is a favorite tactic of the left, to be a bunch of anonymous bullies, mask-wearing bullies, always trying to beat up innocent, peaceful prayer groups, conservative speakers, pro-America people who aren't wearing masks. They're often wearing American flags or, American flag T-shirts, things like that. But the left, which has become, let's face it, the Democrat Party is now synonymous with domestic terrorism. Democrats are domestic terrorists. That's what it has become. And they don't want to be found out for who they are. They want to be able to go to work the next day, collect a paycheck, working for, the Washington Post. And then when they're off work, they want to be a domestic terrorist hiding behind a mask. And this is what they do all over the country. Well, that's going to come to an end in one of two ways. Way number one, all right, this is the first way it can come to an end, is that Congress can pass this unmasking law, and then we can just start waging mass arrests of these domestic terrorists who should all be in prison anyway. They are dangerous, they're bullies, they are shutting down the free speech rights of others. These are dangerous left-wing radical terrorists, and they need to be locked up. Or, method number two, the people they're attacking can just start shooting them. Because, the American people have a right to self-defense. And if you're part of a peaceful prayer group, and you're walking down the street in Portland, Oregon, or somewhere else, and you get attacked by these masked, violent, felony criminals and domestic terrorists known as Antifa, you have a legal right to defend your life in nearly every jurisdiction. Now, I can't tell you what to do. I can't give you legal advice, so take your own actions at your own risk. But as a universal principle, people have the right to defend their lives against aggressive, violent attackers, which means that sooner or later, the innocent American citizens who are merely trying to peacefully walk down the street with a protest permit, perhaps, a march permit, they are going to, in defense of their lives, open fire on these masked felony assaulters, attackers, terrorists known as Antifa. So, it's up to Congress. You can either lock these people up or you can wait for them to be shot down. Either way is probably, they deserve it. Either way. No matter what happens out of those two options, the Antifa protesters deserve it. By taking to the streets with violence and terrorism in their hearts and minds with the intention to commit violence against other people, they are essentially forfeiting their personal freedom. They are forfeiting their right to participate in a free society. And they're going to have to be taken down one way or another. It's either, again, by federal law enforcement officers / agents arresting them, or it's going to happen by the citizens themselves. So let's see what happens in Congress, because this law, this unmasking Antifa law, stands a very real chance of being passed, and it needs to be passed, although it needs to be very narrowly defined, because, of course, we don't want to restrict the rights of peaceful masked whistleblowers, people who are blowing the whistle on something, but not committing violence and not intimidating another group, but are wearing masks to protect their identities for fear of being targeted. That needs to be protected. But if you're wearing a mask to commit violence, well, that should get you sent to prison. So this law needs to be very carefully worded in order to accomplish that. Now, the other thing that's going to come out of this is, if this law is passed, we will find that a lot of so-called Antifa people will just refuse to show up because they're all the same people hired by George Soros. It's the same protesters. They're the same people. They're the Occupy Wall Street people. They're the exact same people. They're just hired guns. They're mercenaries. They are, in essence, terrorists for hire. And if they become identified, then they will not be able to keep pulling this off and faking like it's an organic, spontaneous, peaceful protest. No, you are paid terrorist mercenaries, and you deserve to spend the rest of your life in prison, or you deserve to be shot down if you're assaulting someone with violence and you're trying to harm someone. You deserve what's coming your way, and that's going to happen eventually. If Congress doesn't step in, that's exactly what's going to happen. But I have a question in all this. We're seeing Portland, Oregon, the city council is now defying the federal government. They issued a fine to ICE for having a fence around their facility in Portland, Oregon. So the city of Portland is now siding with the terrorists. And I even mentioned this before in a previous podcast, that it looks like the police department of Portland, Oregon is complicit in siding with the terrorists, allowing the Antifa terrorists to have weapons and then funneling them in to assault on the streets an innocent, peaceful prayer group, which is what happened in Portland. That the police appear to be complicit in this. We now know the city council is complicit. We may have to literally march federal agents into Portland and arrest the city council members and arrest the mayor of Portland, Oregon. Yes, you can quote me on that. It may come to that. And why stop there? Why stop at arresting just the mayor of Portland? We should arrest the mayor of Oakland, California. We should arrest the governor of California, because these people are complicit in siding with left-wing terrorists, and they're also complicit with the murderers, the rapists, the gang members, because they've put up these sanctuary cities that say they will protect felony, violent criminals, MS-13 gang members in California cities. They will refuse to cooperate with the feds. Now, I suppose they should all be free to do that if they just secede from the Union. If you don't want to be part of America anymore, declare your independence, and then you can do whatever the heck you want. You can collapse like Venezuela. You can destroy your own little collapsifornia nation if you want, or Calizuela, or whatever you want to call it, because Democrats will run it into the ground, because Democrats have become, in California, the radical left-wing Democrats there have become absolute human scum, complete scum. They despise civility. They despise a lawful society. They despise America. They hate their own country. So I say, why don't you leave it, you traitors? Why don't you leave it? And if you don't leave it, then you're going to have to comply with the federal immigration laws, which means that if you are harboring illegal criminals in your city, you, the mayor and the governor, should be arrested. The city council members, if they go along with it, should be arrested. And here's a prediction, and then I'll wrap this up. We're going to see this kind of aggressive action after the midterm elections. We won't see it before the midterms because it's too volatile right now to throw something like that into the mix. But after the midterms, I predict that President Trump, the DOJ, DHS, and other federal agencies are going to get very aggressive with these mayors and city councils and governors who are siding with radical left-wing violent terrorist groups. If you are aiding and abetting these terrorists, Antifa, then you're going to face arrest. You're going to be indicted. And I think that day is coming, as well it should, because it's really coming down to a simple thing here. If the feds don't do something to stop this domestic terrorism, the people of America will take matters into their own hands in defense of their communities and in defense of their own lives. It's going to happen one way or another, because we, the people, so far, we're just being patient watching this, but there is a limit to how much abuse that we, the people, will take. There's a limit to how much violence we will stand by and allow to happen. And that limit is very, very close to being reached. And Antifa should pray. They should pray that they don't unleash the response that they deserve. Because if that happens, they will be eliminated in the streets, and they will deserve it. And that day is likely coming, again, one way or another, either by a new federal law or by citizens simply defending themselves against violent assaults. And I guess once they're shot dead, bleeding in the streets, then we can take the masks off and find out who these terrorists really are. That'd be interesting. Could be a website like deadantifa.com and just post the photos of all the dead Antifa terrorists. Say, look, these people, they work in the newspaper. Look who these people are. This one over here claimed to be a journalist. Because that day is coming. One way or another, it's probably coming. Because the American people have a right to self-defense. So I urge Congress pass a law before this escalates out of hand, out of control. You got to stop the civil war because we don't want bloodshed in the streets. We want peace in our cities, and yet the very leaders of those cities are now complicit with the terrorists. So I'm asking Congress, pass this law, and I'm asking the feds to jump in here and start arresting these Antifa terrorists. Do it as soon as possible after the midterm elections, because if you don't, this nation is going to rip itself apart, which is what the left wants. And there are just a lot of patriots who won't stand for it. A lot of people who will stand their ground, defend themselves, defend their communities, defend their states against these radical left-wing terrorists, even if those terrorists are on the city council. You see what I'm saying? We, the people, have the right to walk down the street without being assaulted by Antifa terrorists, and that right will be asserted one way or another. Mark my words. So we got a little bit of time here to see what happens, but if something major doesn't change by the end of the year, you're gonna start seeing some real repercussions of bad decisions on the part of leftists. They're going to discover what happens in the real world when you violently assault people who are armed. That's what's going to happen. So watch my website videos every day at real.video. Just go to real.video, check out the videos there. I'll be posting, others are posting. History needs to know who these people are. They try to hide their identities, and they're not going to be able to for very long. That's for sure. Thanks for listening.
Learn more at healthrangerreport.com.
Thank you for watching. If you want to support our mission, visit us at healthrangerstore.com for the world's largest selection of lab-verified superfood and nutritional products for healthy living. It's at healthrangerstore.com.